Good afternoon. This is Karen Tully reporting on behalf of the Republican women of Baltimore County. And we have Nino Mangione with us today, who is a current Maryland delegate and rerunning in this District 42A. What area is your district?
Thank you, Karen. And District 42A, basically, it's North Baltimore County, more specific places like Hunt Valley, Sparks, Freeland, a little bit to the east of there, a little bit to the west of there, Phoenix, all the way up to the Pennsylvania state line.
Great. People need to identify that quickly because there's so many people to vote for. Okay. I think something that's very important is being able to navigate through the legislature. Somebody that knows how to get things done. You've been a delegate for the last 4 years. Quickly tell us some of your successes.
No, that's a great point, and because it's not easy in Annapolis as a Republican, and I was the youngest elected Republican actually last term. I was able to get a bill passed working with a Democrat that was a property tax credit for our veterans. My grandfather's World War II guys, always going to fight for our veterans. I was able to get some smaller things done, but most importantly, was able to get a bill that became the first in the nation, believe it or not, to ban sexual predators from our high schools. Were an absolute horrific story and an incompetent part on our with the school system, and some bad decisions that were made by the principal and lack of transparency, where a 21-year-old student had a prior sexual assault conviction, was still allowed to attend class with those 14 and 15-year-old girls, went on to sexually assault 2 girls. I put a bill in. I questioned the superintendent. Did a town hall meeting. I met with the victims, and we put the bill in. And a year later, it became the first state in the country to ban sexual predators like that from being able to attend our high school.
Well, that's perfect because I know as we go further, we're going to see other ways that you're trying to protect the children now. And I also want to tell you something. You mentioned an asset that I think people are looking for today. People want young people. They want in the legislators. Some people feel that we're topping out with the age, even though I really respect the elderly people. So that's great that you were one of the youngest.
Politicians that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years, especially federally, but we won't get into them. Exactly. Nancy Pelosi being one of them.
So let's move next to something I think is part of your platform is very important. Crime. Baltimore City has one of the highest crime rates in the nation, and we are now seeing that bleed over into the county. Describe to us some of the dangers we see with crime in Baltimore County.
That's a great point, and that's my number one issue right now is crime, because without safe communities, we have nothing else. Your businesses won't thrive. Your schools and the community where your kids go to school won't be safe. Just look at absolutely love Towson, the area of Towson. I went to Towson University. I went to Calvert Hall, spent a lot of years in that area. And to see over the last year murders in a brand new, beautiful, outside of this brand new, beautiful apartment complex. You had a shooting outside Trader Joe's in Kenilworth Mall that resulted in a death. You've had carjackings at broad daylight outside of the mall. Just out of control crime that you never expect and never would see in Towson years ago. And this is happening all over Baltimore County. The Baltimore County murder rate was at its highest 2 out of I believe the last 3 years. And believe it or not, they're trying to tell us crime is going down. That's absolutely a lie.
Well, let me just say 2 things. That one, my daughter goes to college, so I know a lot of people in this area, and they're very worried about the crime even on campus. There's been shootings and things.
Exactly right.
And also, I think that it's important that people realize that that's happening.
Well, I do want to say real quick, make no mistake that policies have a massive role in whether or not crime goes up and down. And if you're going to be soft on crime, soft on criminals, you're going to see more and more crime. And that's what's happened in Baltimore City. Look how soft, and people like Marilyn Mosby, for example. And then when that crime is allowed to happen, it spreads and spreads, and it comes to the county. And Towson's a perfect example, among other places in the county that are seeing more and more crime.
Oh, I know what I wanted to comment on, that the results are skewed because they're changing what a crime is. So therefore, it's not even reported. So the crime rate is higher than we're actually perceiving. You opposed the elimination of the Bill of Rights for police officers. Many people don't understand the liability and the problem with that police officer. Would you describe that for us, please?
Yeah, so basically 2 sessions ago, the Democrats in Annapolis, they made the police, our law enforcement, the brave men and women, pretty much public enemy number one. I couldn't imagine anything like that. Years ago, we all used to look up. We loved our law enforcement, and now they've made them the enemy and not the criminal. That Bill of Rights basically protects law enforcement officers because they have a very dangerous job that they have to make split-second decisions on a daily basis that literally could mean life or death. So this Bill of Rights basically protected them, and what they did is they basically chopped that in half, made it more difficult, less safe for our law enforcement, and now you have Monday morning quarterbacks coming out there questioning part of the bill whether or not they should have done this or should have done that, when they're looking at it from a safe perspective at a desk or in a little meeting when these law enforcement officers had literally their lives on the line. I mean, I hate to even bring it up, but look at like something that happened to Amy Caprio, a beloved police officer that lost her life tragically. Split-second decisions like that result in life or death, and her life was lost at the hands of these thugs, and they were younger thugs, but that's what they were. And you mean to tell me if she, or in any case, you're going to have question certain, I mean, if somebody does something wrong, absolutely you have to make sure there's a review. But to just handcuff them like that with that bill, terrible mistake.
And no wonder that so many police officers are leaving the force, and we have a shortage of police officers. Maryland is also a sanctuary state, many sanctuary counties regarding different aspects. Explain a sanctuary state.
So what a sanctuary state is basically because, well, in Maryland, because of the Democrats in Annapolis, it is a state that allows safe haven, and even like Maryland promotes policy that says you're illegally here in the country, you're an illegal alien, come to Maryland. We'll give you a driver's license. We'll give you believe it or not, they passed a bill that allowed for tax credits for people that couldn't even didn't have to prove that they were legal citizens. They basically make it very difficult for our law enforcement. They will not allow our law enforcement to ask their legal status. And they're actually trying to get rid of housing illegal aliens in our prisons. It's just, all it is a sanctuary means just come here. If you're illegal, you're welcome. That's in a nutshell what it means, and policies that promote it.
Can they get welfare?
Oh, they get plenty of benefits, public benefits, absolutely, and even in-state tuition. They get in-state tuition, Briggs. Your daughter is probably paying out-of-state tuition from somewhere else. They're not from Maryland. Their parents are not even legally.
I never even thought of that. They're not from Maryland because they're illegal.
They're illegal. I mean, if you lived in Maryland but can't prove that you're a Marylander, try doing that in Delaware. Try coming from Delaware and not paying the tuition rates.
That's a great point. Great point. Let's move to something a little bit more broader. And this is something I always like to bring up in every single interview because it's crazy. I'm always asking people out in public different questions to see how the public feels. Just the other day, I asked a woman again, how many illegal immigrants do you think come into this country every month? She said 5 or 10,000. People don't realize that 250,000 illegal immigrants enter this country every single month, and they're causing a lot of problems. And before I ask you your opinions on that, I want to say that they also feel as if they are in the country and they get all of the different rights that we have.
And that's a great point, because what Maryland and the Democrats have done have turned our state far, far, far from the border into a border state because they have policies that promote illegal immigrants to come here. We will give you these benefits. And now what you've seen, and this is not to say that everybody here illegally is a drug dealer or is a bad person. A lot of them try to come here for the opportunity. I understand that.
Let me clarify that. I think it's so important to clarify this. Are you for legal immigration?
Absolutely. I love legal immigrants. I have a lot of friends that are, I mean, when I played soccer at Towson University, a lot of my teammates were from other countries, but came here. They went through the process. Now they're American citizens, some of them. And the ones that we think alike, like I do, I mean, it's amazing to see somebody or meet somebody from all the way across the world and they see politically just like you. It's an amazing feeling. But 100% for legal immigration. We need to know who people are. We need to know why they're here. It's for the safety of every single American.
I think it's important. What about the fentanyl and perhaps the terrorists? Again, we're not saying that all illegal immigrants are terrorists. However, what's your comment on fentanyl being brought into this country and terrorists be able to come across the border?
It's an absolute disaster. It's a shame. It's disgusting because we sent, Neil Armstrong to the moon back, it's been 50, 60, whatever amount of years where we sent the military in World War II all the way to defeat the Nazis in Germany. And with all that machinery and everything, we could do this. We can stop the flow of fentanyl. We can stop people from coming across the border. We did amazing things in this country's history, and yet we won't. It's because they don't want to. And it's disgusting because, yeah, you're always going to have some drug issues. I mean, you're never going to get rid of drugs completely. But right now, fentanyl is an absolute mass killer of Americans, and it needs to be stopped. And we need to have harsher penalties on those drug dealers. And it is coming in. It's coming in from China also. But we need, for people caught dealing those deadly drugs, need to be locked up, and if not, considered a death penalty for some of them.
It's the number one cause for death, I think, between people between ages and 35. So let's move on to something else, because fentanyls, we're seeing it in the schools. Let's talk about education and some of the woke policies that we're seeing. There are a lot of parents that are standing up against these woke policies. How would you describe woke?
Woke. Well, that's a good question, because woke to me is just people that are insane. But it's this politically incorrect, very soft mentality where really I think what's right is wrong and wrong is right. And they just take something, and it's just, again, very, very soft kind of politically correct mentality, I guess you could say. I mean,
it's soft, but let's talk about some of the policies associated with woke,
yeah, and
like
too,
CRT, critical race,
yeah, exactly.
parents' rights.
So woke in school basically, yeah, is indoctrinating these young children with things that they have no business even needing to hear, let alone learn about. I mean, these are adult discussions if you want to have them. Even then, I think it's woke adults. But a 5 and 6 and 7-year-old child in elementary or middle school has no business being discussing anything to do with race or sexuality or any of that nonsense. They need to be learning reading, writing, math, science. We used to have the best schools in the world, and now we continue to decline. And part of the reason is because they're focusing on critical race theory and the sexuality and woke ideas and trying to make us seem like we have this horrendous history, when they can be teaching whatever they want at the college. I didn't know colleges are the most woke, but they need to focus on the basic life skills that prepare these kids, students, for getting the education to provide opportunity.
And having the money. I mean, Baltimore City spends $23,000 a year on students. Half those kids, I think 75% of those kids come out and they can't read or write. Do you believe in school choice?
I absolutely believe in school choice. I believe in chartered schools. It's a shame and it's very sad. It's heartbreaking to hear those numbers. Fox Baltimore has done a number of reports on the failures, and yet all that money, and the Democrat solution is more money. They always want more money, and nothing changes, no results. The teachers union have complete control over the Democrats, and they vice versa. They work together, and nothing gets better. And like I said, these results are abysmal. And yet they shoot down money going directly to the parent to go towards school choice. Charter schools do not get the funding they should. They cut what was called the Boost program, which is a program basically that allows money for mostly lower income individuals to use that money to go towards a school or religious school of their choice, basically. And they shot that funding's being phased out when they get results. When I sit on the appropriations committee, we have them come in and they testify about the program and they talk about how great the program works. Well, they're cutting that.
What's the appropriations committee?
So the Appropriations Committee is one of the committees in the House of Delegates where you basically discuss and debate, and you're responsible for figuring out how to appropriate the taxpayer dollar. Basically.
Oh, okay, good. I want to just go back again to the indoctrination, because it's disturbing to me personally. The indoctrination of woke also includes these gender studies in California. Gender indoctrination of younger children, pride parades, and it is happening, because the other day a woman out in Howard County told me that her 5-year-old granddaughter was in a parade. Also, I want to make people aware that they're trying to change now where a girl can have a breast mastectomy. They call it top surgery at 16 and below, and that also parents do not need to be informed if the pronouns are starting to be used. Do you think parents should be able to be told if their children are starting to transition?
Parental rights is probably one of the number one issues right now, because it all back to what we were saying before is parents. I mean, lots of parents are really busy. they're working, they're managing their families, and sometimes they don't realize until COVID what some of this indoctrination is actually happening. We started seeing on Zoom, the Zoom teachings, how they're really pushing this agenda towards these young students, especially because if you get them young and you indoctrinate them young, it's hard to unindoctrinate that, if that's a word. But what I see here in some of them,
excuse me, it's called detransition.
Detransition. Yeah, they're trying to transition them into little liberal zombies, basically. And what you have here with, you talk about, I can't even fathom the idea of trying to indoctrinate a confused teenager.
Well, we're all confused, aren't we, as teenagers?
Life is confusing, but trying to get a teenager to change their sex and a doctor that goes along with that and a parent who would go along with that, I really, really question. But the fact that that's coming from the schools also.
And
teachers, woke, left-wing, radical, lunatic teachers are pushing that stuff, and it all comes back to what I said. We need just simple life skills being taught, the reading, the writing, the math, the science, like they did in the 40s and 50s when we had better education than we did now with way less money.
Exactly. I want to make one more point. Do you know that the transition centers in 2017, there were 3 to 5, and now there's 30 to 40 transition centers throughout the United States for young kids? And what they're really attacking, Nino, is the identity. And as you just said, every teenager questions their identity. That's part of the rite of passage of being a teenager. So I agree, and I hope you're going to fight really hard for that issue, for parental rights.
Parental rights is one of our number one issues. Dan Cox, I know, my friend Dan, who I'm supporting, big supporter of what he's trying to win. He's a big supporter, I know that. So it's a top issue for the Republicans, no doubt. And it's been a top issue, especially when it comes to the indoctrination and
of
education.
Our children, right?
Yep.
So the next thing I'd like to move on is taxes. You mentioned that you're in the Appropriation Committee, and we are seeing one of the major exodus of retirees and businesses in Maryland. What would you do to change that? How would you vote? What are some important issues to change it?
There's no doubt that we're one of the worst states in the country for retirees. We have been, which very good news. We did a little bit last year to help retirees, nowhere near enough. And I will continue, and I know the Republicans have put forth bills over the last several years, my first term, to really, really, really do more for retirees, more keeping their own money rather than what we're seeing is these retirees saying, all right, it's cheaper in Delaware. When my kids finish college, I'm done. When I finish work in a couple more years and we already know that it's coming for people that are just a few years away on top of those who had already left. So you really have to see whether or not, because we have money for illegal aliens. We have money for an abortion fund that they just passed. Lots of waste, and we have a huge budget. More and more need to go towards the retirees.
Okay, let me really fire you up, okay? 87,000 IRS agents that many they're equipping with some type of arms.
That bill, I mean, is it 87,000 more Border Patrol agents? No. Is it 87,000 more cops to go to Baltimore City? No. It's 87,000 more IRS agents. Why they're having firearms, and I've seen the videos also of them training, like they're going to come raid you with a firearm with who knows under this administration, under Biden, maybe they will. It doesn't make sense to me. It's going to cost billions and billions and billions of dollars to figure out how they can take more of your tax dollars. This is unbelievable. It's unheard of. And this all by the time while inflation is through the roof, but they're focused on how to get more and more of your money.
And it's going to be small businesses they're coming after. Mom, pop, absolutely. That's the main people they're coming. So you mentioned that you were pro-life. And just briefly, not talking from a moral value because we know how you feel there. Do you think that being a abortion sanctuary state could affect us economically?
I do.
Or
yeah.
our vote in any way?
Well, it's a good question. It's a really good question. I mean, yes, I'm pro-life. My record is 100% pro-life. I think Maryland Right to Life endorsed me. It's a great question for two reasons. Number one, when it comes to this election in November, if abortion is your only issue, then it's your only issue. But in the state of Maryland, it will not change based on the Supreme Court. What happened in the Supreme Court is not going to affect anybody's ability in the state of Maryland to go out and have an abortion. It just won't, because the Democrats have the supermajority in the House and Senate, and nothing's going to happen there. Number two, It is. We are a sanctuary for abortions now because what we're doing is creating this. What they did is create a fund. Over $3 million per year are going to go to a fund. This is your tax dollars that could be used for God knows how many more important things.
Adoption agencies or
Adoption
foster
agencies
care.
absolutely could be used for that.
Or
And
education.
It's a perfect point.
Education to teach people about premarital sex. There's so many other things that
And
we
it's
could
being
do.
used for this abortion fund. And, think 10 years, $3 million, that's $30 million over 10 years that went towards
And it will increase. We can expect that. Earlier, I asked you who your major competitor was as a delegate. You were so respectful, but we have to bring this up.
Yeah.
Why you over your competitor? Who is your competitor? And why should everyone vote for you?
Well, Paul Conca is his name. I've only met him once or twice. Seems like a perfectly nice guy, I guess. But a very far left, radical liberal. I represent North Baltimore County, most importantly. The people in North Baltimore County, beautiful part of the state. I don't think that they want far left, radical, liberal politics to represent them. Whether it's, do they want Baltimore City crime in North Baltimore County? I can speak for all of us when I say absolutely not. Do they want this radical environmentalism, which he pushes? I don't think so. They passed a radical, kind of like a Green New Deal last year in the state. That's not what the people are looking for in any stretch of the imagination across the spectrum in North Baltimore County with this liberal dynamic that he represents.
So the key is he's liberal. Correct?
Very, very, very much so.
Let me sum it up how I've seen you. You are a conservative candidate. In fact, CPAC, I think, gave you an award for being one of the candidates that vote. You have been endorsed by several places, FOP, Fraternity of Police,
County, yep.
realtors, and I think small businesses.
Realtor, yep. And there's a handful there. I mean, I was honored to have the Baltimore County FOP's endorsement. CPAC, I've received every year since I've been there the Conservative Excellence Award for having a pretty high conservative rating. I may have even had the highest in the state or not tied for it. Whether it was the Right to Life, as I said, endorsed, realtors, the Maryland Free Enterprise, they ranked business votes, and every year I scored very high marks, including one or two of them I had 100% for pro small business.
Oh, that's great.
100%. And the only ones that times I lost points on their survey was I may have missed a vote. Everybody misses a vote here or there. Yeah.
Sure.
So, it's pro business, pro safety, pro life, all these things, they've all endorsed my candidacy. Conservative.
You walk the talk. So what you say you have done when it came to voting in the legislature. So how can people reach you? How can they help with your campaign?
Well, I would really appreciate any help. NinoForMaryland.com. You can go there. Follow us on Facebook, Nino Mangione. We have a very, very active Facebook. I think we have 9,500 people in there. So join the discussion. Let us know what you think. And again, NinoForMaryland.com.
And Nino, that's Nino, Nino, for F.
ND.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's do that so people know. It's Nino, Nino, for FOR, Maryland.com.
Yep.
That's your website. But on Facebook, it's your name, correct?
Yes, Nino Mangione. I have a personal page and a private page. So a personal page and a public page. So check the one with the blue check mark. That's the one you want to check out and follow where we stand and what we're up to.
And if you want to know how to spell Mangione, I'll have that in the heading for this, and so will he. So thank you so much for the interview. Seems like your heart's there to fight for Marylanders and to fight for conservative values.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming out here, Karen.